Before we sort of get into the process of the sort of indoctrination or brainwashing or however you'd use to describe it, just for those that don't know what Scientology is, could you just give us a quick sort of explanation on its overall sort of ideology and its, what they believe and what they're up to nowadays?
Yeah. It was founded 1950 in United States by an American called Hubbard. He was a former pulp fiction writer in science fiction. And he wasn't so good at that. And so he decided to start a religion. He once said at a convention I think it was in New York, 1948, that it was a convention for American science fiction writers. And he said that if you want to get rich, you shouldn't write science fiction. You should start a religion. 2 hours later on, he did that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and he claimed to be a scientist himself, which is a lie. That's why he called it Scientology. The knowledge about science. So he claimed that Scientology is based on science, but that's not true. Then he combined that with some, Buddhist and Hinduist thoughts and ideas, like reincarnation is one foundation in Scientology, that we have lived many lives. And he developed a kind of a therapy basically based on Sigmund Freud's theories about the human mind and psychotherapy. So he stole a lot of things from other sources and put that together to one thing, and this one thing he called Scientology.
Mad. So a self-confessed fictional writer. For those that aren't sure, that means it's not real. You write about things that aren't fact. Then went on to write something as if it was fact, and it caught on, surprisingly. But I think at that time, in what year was this? I mean, this was what, 60s, something like that?
No, it was in the 50s.
50s, yeah, well, there we go. Okay, fine. So, and you said about the therapy stuff. Is that the e-meter, electrometer stuff that's supposed to identify thetans or something?
Well,
what exactly is that?
Yeah. The e-meter is kind of a lie detector, which L. Hubbard claimed that he invented, but it wasn't him who did that. He stole that idea as well as everything else he stole. And the e-meter is used to identify in a therapy session. You have a therapist, which is called the auditor in Scientology. It's from the Greek word audit, listen. So you have a therapist, an auditor, and you have the person who is receiving the therapy. And his theory is based on that we have, we experience traumas in our life, bad experiences, physical or what's the word? Physical or
mental,
yeah, bad experiences. And these experiences affect us. We store them in our subconscious, and then if we experience a lot of traumas, they tend to affect us in a negative way. This is what Sigmund Freud said as well. So this is the piece that L. Hubbard stole from Sigmund Freud and other psychotherapists, writers, and researchers. And the therapy in Scientology is based on that. You have to find those bad memories, the traumas, those who are hidden in your subconscious. You have to remember them. You have to pick them up from your subconscious. You have to tell the auditor about them. And when you pick them up from your subconscious and you tell about them, then the bad influence on you that they have disappears.
Okay. So it's almost like the part of confession from Catholicism is also being sort of
Yeah.
siphoned into the Scientology package as well, because that's
Yeah.
essentially, that's what that lift is, of sharing some trauma. It's just a basic therapy session. You mean you can get that from chatting to a friend, right?
Exactly. It's the same mechanism.
Mm.
But then Edwin Hubbard, when he introduced Scientology in the 50s, the e-meter didn't exist at that point.
Mm.
So the auditor just tried to find the traumas. In Scientology, the traumas are called engram.
Engram.
And then, you know, the first book he released was quite, what do you say, I can't find the English word. It was quite a success.
Mm.
And a lot of people bought it, and Edwin Hubbard got followers. And then some years later, he started the religion. Because, you know, a religion in the United States, or if you get it classified as a religion, you don't have to pay tax.
Exactly, yeah.
Because in the beginning, Edwin Hubbard was very critical to all religions. He claimed to be a scientist. But then he saw the money. So he changed Scientology to be a religion. And later on, Scientology was classified as a religion. So the therapy is really the foundation in Scientology. The therapy is the reason why Tom Cruise, John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, and all those famous actors are Scientologists, and every Scientologist are into Scientology because they think that this therapy will make them superhumans. Because that's the goal with the therapy. That's the pitch from the Church of Scientology. If you go through all the steps in our therapy, you know, Edwin Hubbard, he developed you have played computer games. You know, in World of Warcraft or in many computer games, you level up. You get skilled and you level up.
That keeps you on it. That keeps you going.
Yeah.
That's that dopamine hit. That's the achievement. You know, we've been chasing that since we were kids. That feeling, right?
Exactly. And Edwin Hubbard discovered this early on, that if you make levels, then you can create new levels. And each level of therapy costs a lot of money. And so he created more levels. Before you can reach the goal to be a superhuman, or to, as they say in Scientology, to get spiritual freedom, total spiritual freedom. But in actually, it's as a Scientologist, you achieve supernatural powers if you go through all the steps that Scientology has for your therapy.
Wow.
So if you go through all the steps, you have to pay between 2 to 6 million Swedish kronor.
Okay, so that's 600 to £1 million, really. It's about 100 to, it's about 10 to 1 ratio, isn't it, Swedish krona? So I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And if you go through all the steps and pay all this money and go through the therapy, you will get you will be able to affect other people without using words, just with the power of your mind. You will get a perfect memory. You will remember everything you have experienced in this life and in all your lives that you have lived. And you will even be able to affect the physical universe without using your body. So only with your power of your mind, you can affect the physical things around you.
Okay.
You will be, your IQ will be really, really high, and you will be successful in any way in life, in relations and business and so on. So this is the sales pitch that Scientology use and has been, I'm afraid, quite successful with.
Well, it's like the grandfather of the MLM period schemes, right? It's like we don't need Herbalife and all these other multi-level marketing things. I mean, Scientology sounds like it was the OG of that platform. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
you're making all these huge promises. They're only attainable at the top when you reach level 100 or whatever it is, and it's going to cost like £1 million.
exactly.
To even get there. That sounds, if you don't mind me saying, batshit crazy. However, there's lots of crazy theories on here. We had a flat Earth guy on here just last week telling us the Earth was flat, and he was still a pretty cool guy. He just had some wacky ass ideas.
All right.
So this is what Scientology looks like. So back to when you're 17 years old,
Yeah.
and you've gone in and I'm assuming you've done your first audit. You've done your first session with the Scientologists. What was that like?
Well, you know, Scientology is quite different to other religions. Many religions, most all religions, you get to know the whole package before you buy it. You know, you can read the Bible and so forth, and you know, you get the all information. What is this religion about? But in Scientology, they don't tell you the whole package. So these things about reincarnation and, you know, the superpowers, this they don't tell you until you have been, you know, been a Scientologist for quite a while. So in the beginning, you are offered courses in such things as I said. Do you want to be better in communication? Do you have better relations? Do you want to be more successful in life? And they have small courses that presents this. So, and first later on, you will get these. You get into auditing the therapy and get to know that. So, I started with the small courses, but the main thing for me wasn't the ideology of Scientology. That wasn't the main reason at the beginning. It was these people that I liked and wanted to be with. And this is the same thing for most religion, most cults, that the first step is about social connection. You know, we have a basic desire or need to belong to a group. Because when we lived in the savannas many years ago, if you got excluded from your group, you didn't survive. So we have that basic need in us. You want to be connected to a group and be invited to be with a group. So that was the main reason for me in the beginning. I liked this group. I wanted to be part of that group. And then the ideology came later on. And for the majority of young people who are getting manipulated into sects or cults, this is the mechanism that is in place or in play.
It's essentially it's gang behavior. It's just tribalism. I mean, it's the same piece of human behavior that's causing this absolute uprise in identity politics that we see everywhere at the moment, because everybody wants to belong to a specific community. And not necessarily caring about what the message or the mission is for each one of those communities. For a lot of people, just belonging is already enough. And there are lots of vulnerable people around who have experienced tons of trauma, which makes it easy to be susceptible to falling into lots of these different, you know, cults and communities, which may not necessarily have your best interests at heart.
I couldn't formulate that better myself.
Well, it's very interesting. So okay, so you've done your first meeting, you've done your first therapy session, or whatever that is. What was the kind of process where they kind of really nailed you down, where they manipulated into you really being a Scientologist to the point where it just became your life? Because I'm assuming at some point you start identifying as a Scientologist, like you will actually associate it with your personal brand, and that's when stuff gets really dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. Because that you're so right in that, because when you're taking that decision, then it's really difficult for other people to talk you out of it. So my moment was actually, I had been hanging around with these people for maybe 2 years. I have been going through some courses. I hadn't got my first session. I was supposed to, I had one session actually. And was this session who made me take the decision. And the session, I experienced some, I was so manipulated. So I thought I'd been experiencing some reincarnation memories. Me and my girlfriend had the same kind of experience that the same day. I write about this in my book, this exact moment. And that, when you are, as I was 19, and as you said yourself, when you are in that age, your brain works. You have this part of your brain where all the emotions are, amygdala. I'm not sure if that's the word.
That is absolutely correct. Yep.
And amygdala is very active and strong when you are a teenager. And so now, this effect that you can have when you are a teenager, you go all into something. You can feel a lot of emotions, and you, in the same time, your brain is not fully developed. The part in the frontal lobe.
Yep.
That's where the decision making are.
Yes, the logical part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex.
Part. And also the part where you can judge the consequences of a behavior. And that part is not fully developed until you're 25. So you have the emotional, a strong amygdala, and you don't have a boss up here telling you that if you do this, there might be consequences. So, so when you're in that age, you can be, you can do a lot of crazy stuff because it feels good. So I got, a lot of these emotions, and I thought really that Scientology was the solution to everything. So that moment when that day when we both experienced that reincarnation memories, we took a decision and decided to start working as a Scientologist. So we went to the church and signed a paper, an employment paper actually. So you can work for the church. So we did that, and we worked 7 days a week. We didn't get salary, so we had to have ordinary jobs, daytime. So I worked as a teacher, and in the evenings and the weekends we worked in the Church of Scientology in this small town.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're about 19, 20 years old. So a couple of years after you were first exposed to the concept of Scientology. When you really started getting involved and it started becoming a huge part of who you were, how did your family think about that? Was there much sort of impact on sort of the other part of your life where, people were either sort of like concerned or found it very strange what you were doing?
Yeah, a lot. Both my family and I had a lot of friends in my, in the in my sports community where I was hanging around, and everyone was worried because when you take that decision, it means practically that or literally that you cut off your connections to every other friend you have.
Well, that's something that you're required to do, or is that something that just comes with it?
It comes with it. In some cults, you are required. We were not required, but we had full-time job. We just hanged around with ourselves in the group. when we didn't work for Scientology. But there were no time for hanging around with other friends. So
wow.